Okay, cool. We're going to jump right back into where we were. Stage is set. We're in the world of boating through very cold and unpopulated spaces. That would actually be pretty great right now during a pandemic. All right, camera. I'm just going to close all these layers down just so I don't have to worry about them anymore. It gives me a little more room to look at my workspace. So a camera. I want to bring a camera in. I want the camera to be the main player for this shot, which means making sure that I can move through an environment that brings this experience and this moment to life. Cameras in After Effects work very much like cameras in the real world. And in order for us to get one, we're going to go to layer, and it's considered a layer, so we're going to say new camera. Get to know that shortcut, because it's a whole lot easier than having to go up here and do this. In fact, I'll just do that. Command Option Shift C. So that opens up our camera window. Yours might not look like mine, but the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to change it to a 1-node camera, not a 2-node camera. We'll get into the nodes here in a little bit, but we're going to simplify this. We're going to make life a lot easier to start off with the camera, and then we'll look at ways in which a 2-node camera actually can benefit us. You can name your camera if you want to, because sometimes we'll have multiple cameras in here, and that's really a super awesome convenience. But then you can also choose your different presets of what kind of lens we're dealing with. By default, we're going to start with a 50mm, but then we're going to look at other lenses as well as some of the other features that are in the camera. You can enable depth of field if you want to. We're not going to right now. You can lock zoom. We're going to keep it locked on zoom. And then we're just going to hit OK. And so now in the timeline is a camera, but nothing has changed, because this camera is the default camera that comes in After Effects if you're just trying to like futz around with 3D without actually getting into a camera. So that default camera is kind of what that image that we were seeing in our preview window here is drawing. But now this camera is dynamic. It's not just some default camera that we have no control over. This camera we have absolute control over. And the things that we have control over, if I open up the toggle for this and look at transform, I can change its position, its orientation, and rotation. They're kind of the same thing. So that should be nothing new, but there's no scale. A camera can't grow in scale. And there's no opacity. You might say, well, I should be able to like fade in or fade out. That doesn't happen with a camera here. That's all about lighting or opacity of other layers. So as far as the transform controls go, those attributes are just limited to position and rotation. And if I take position and start to manipulate at Z, and this is where this is where the magic really starts to happen. I'm gonna hold down Shift too, but like just as I'm moving into this shot, I can see that this foreground cloud is moving at a greater rate than the boat, but there's still like some background variation and parallaxing going on, which is really cool just by moving its Z value. I'm gonna hit undo. If I change its position on the X, I've got the ability to kind of move along to the side until I run out of material. And this is where material ends up being a real big factor. So you can see my little box. You can see the floor, you can see the end of the walls. And if I go on the other direction, you can see sort of the same thing. So it's like we're building a diorama, which is awesome. And then Y value is getting lower to the ground or higher away from the ground. You can see the ground separating from the background plate, right? And that's something you got to look out for. But like right there, I'm pretty much right at its maximum Y value. The magic happens when you start to animate the clouds, maybe the boat, but also the camera. But even just animating the camera is going to be fantastic. So what I just want to do is a simple movement in position. And at frame 0, I'm going to keyframe position. I don't know why I did orientation. I didn't ask for that. Just position, please. And I'm going to go to my 5 seconds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move in. I'd like to move in toward the boat. And then I would also like to kind of keep it oriented sort of close to the middle. And I might even play with my verticality a little bit. And so here what I have is a move where it's the camera. Oh, I'm seeing some separation from those background mountains. That's not good. I need to fix that. But that's what you have to look for. You have to look for those things. I see the edges up here, and I see the edges down here separating. So I have to be really smart about how I approach the scale and placement for those layers, but then also ways for me to hide that if I absolutely need to. In this case, I might be like, well, the vertical lift just is not working for me. So I might come to this last keyframe and say, no, don't go up as much. Let's stay nice and low. Maybe I don't move as much over on the X value too, just so I don't see it. Like already I can tell that that's better, but I'm seeing the mountain behind it. I'd want to fix that. But the foreground cloud, this guy here, I think that you could even come over more like this way, and I don't like your opacity. I'm going to make you even a little thicker, and then I might take the clouds that are behind the boat and say, hey, position, let's animate you from there to there, and the clouds behind that one at frame 0. You're there, and then over here, you're going to be moving that way as well. So that just over that 5 second period, oh man, they're too close to each other. That's too much. The one in the background would not move that much in relation to the foreground because that perception of parallaxing. This is a little bit better. It's a little more believable. But you can see the floor, like we're moving along the floor. The boat is feeling a little anchored out there in the water. I can see a little bit of drift. That's still another issue. It's fine. There are ways around that, but we won't get there just yet. If you ever have that issue, send it to me. I'll tell you how to fix it. It's a big can of worms. But this is a still image. But what we've just done is we broke it into a whole new reality where we can move through that space and feel like the stagnation of still photography has now moved into a sense of frozenness in time and video work, and almost like some of that matrixy stuff where there's multiple cameras around that capture that same moment. But the fact that we're moving the clouds, maybe you can move the boat a little bit. You could even have the boat sort of doing not too much of a bobble, but a little bit of drift or something like that. That's fantastic, and that is just the camera. So the camera is the hero here, the visible hero. The unsung hero is you having separated those layers and created an environment that is one that is as seamless as possible, to where we can start to feel in that moment, in that space, and becomes way more magical. It's so cool. All right. Next up is going to be way back to the basics, super simple. We're going to think about the camera and some of its attributes. So I'm just going to hit save. Am I going to hit save? Yeah, I'm going to hit save. I'll give you that. We'll save that. Cool. All right. Next video.